Hello, you just started learning Salesforce and you found out that workflow rules and process builders are going away. And Salesforce flow automation is the future. You want to learn Salesforce flows, but you don't know where to start. You're not alone. Recently, I recorded this Salesforce Saturday Jacksonville session where I took about 50 people through a comprehensive tour of popular flow types. In about 1.5 hours, you are going to learn various different topics around flows. This video includes record triggered flows, fast field updates before save, actions and related records after save, create a task associated with the record that triggered your flow, send out an email associated with the record that triggered your flow, create an Autolauched flow, create a screen flow, and distribute the screen flow on a Lightning record page. Use a quick action button to launch your screen flow. Save your flow as a different type. Debug your flow. All these concepts are available in this video. I'm going to divide the video into sections and provide timestamps so that you can go to the relevant section if you are curious about a certain topic. Obviously, if you want to go into more advanced topics, you want to check out the other videos on this YouTube channel, like looping, avoiding governors limits, and all kinds of other advanced use cases. Enjoy. Welcome to Jacksonville, Florida, Salesforce Saturday session. I've done many of these sessions before. I kind of took a break. I have not done many live sessions recently. And now this is actually a special edition for Gems and Tech, and they are doing wonderful stuff, trying to support new talent coming into the Salesforce ecosystem. I really appreciate them, and I obviously want to support the cause and help people learning and getting on the Salesforce platform. And as you all know, flow is the future now, and everybody should learn flows at some point. And let me just tell you, this is actually going to be a session that is going to start very basic. So if you know flows a little bit, the beginning could be possibly trivial for you, but as we go along, it's going to get like more involved, more difficult. And for the new starters, if you get lost in the later part of the session, do not worry. I do not think any learning effort goes to waste. Sometimes you have to listen to it a couple of times for the concepts to sink in with you, right? So that's why it's important that you listen, try to understand, and try to capture all the information you can get out of it. And at some point, it's going to be 100% clear for you, and you're going to be able to repeat it like it's second nature. So let me just share my screen. Can I get an okay in chat that this screen looks fine? And let me check the resolution, the zoom level on this one. We want to see it clearly. Let's do 125. And yes, we got an okay from the audience that you can see your screen. All right, so this is a brand new developer org I created. I called it Gemtech, right? So we are going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to give you a tour around the flow concepts, right? I've started doing that. The first time I did that was almost 2 years ago, and it was received well. And I try and teach starting with record triggered flows, because record triggered flows are very similar to workflow rules and process builders. And if you're not brand new to Salesforce, many of you have already touched workflow rules and process builders. And it doesn't require the deep understanding of variables. So, it's easy to get started on it. So what we're going to do first, and again, I always like to show what I'm going to do and how things work inside the Salesforce org on the UI, and explain the use case before I show you how to build it, right? And here, what we have, let me just go to opportunities here. We are going to be working on the opportunities initially. What we have is automation running on the opportunity object. I'm going to create a new opportunity here. And I'm going to call this Gems in Tech 9. And the amount is going to be 250,000. And the close date is going to be end of August 2022. And stage will be qualification. And the lead source will be purchased list. So these are the things I'm setting here. Let me repeat: opportunity name, James and Tech 9, lead source, purchase list, amount 250,000, and the close date is 8/31/2022, stage qualification. Those are the things I said. I'm going to save this. It's a brand new record. And as soon as I save this, I'm going to inspect the record that I see on my screen. I'm going to see that now on this record, the type of opportunity has been set to new customer. I have not set that, so that must be automation running here, right? And I'm going to also see that in my activities, I have a task. And this task has a subject: new client needs follow-up, purchase list, due date of today, 7/9/2022, prior to normal, status not started, and it is related to the opportunity. That's how I see it on my activity, actually activities on the opportunity record, but I can also see the link here. I can hover on it, I can click on it. So this is a task. And this task is assigned to me because it's a dev org. There are not too many users, but the chances are it's assigned to me because I'm the owner of the opportunity. And we're going to see how to do that anyway, right? And yeah, well, the question is this recorded? Yes, this is recorded now. And the purpose is it's going to be on my YouTube channel. And you can see the link to my YouTube channel on salesforcebreak.com, the website. And you can go from there and then find the YouTube channel. Follow me on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'll tell you when it's available. It's going to be available in maximum 1 week, I would imagine. You can watch it, rewatch it, play with it. So, well, actually, there's one more thing I've done here, which I can't see over here in this interface, but I have a Salesforce Break Gmail account that I use for my testing. And that account should have received an email. Yes, and as I refresh my Gmail, I see that there is an email that was issued called Large Opportunity Entered. Please follow up on large opportunity. So apparently the 250,000, according to some like filters and conditions inside my org, set up inside my org, is a large opportunity, and it requires an email to be sent to somebody, right? We'll see that now. So all those things got triggered. So we'll see whether this was done via flow, one flow, multiple flows. That's all going to be clear for us once we start going into flows. So these are your typical use cases that you would use workflow rules and process builders for. That's what we did before. As you all know, now the workflow rules and process builders are going away. So we shouldn't use those tools for this purpose anymore. So we're just gonna get started learning whether you used workflow rules and process builders before. It doesn't matter. We're gonna start learning how to build these things on flow. And when you build your first flow, what you need to do is you just go here to the gear icon, to your setup, And then what I usually do is I start typing flow because the list is very big, right? And then I'll see my flow screen on the left side. And when I go to my flow screen, I'll see my flows. Usually it starts with this list view. This is a list view very similar to any other list view you'll find in Salesforce. You'll have a standard list view. You can customize your list views and you can pin one. It is very useful actually once you start building multiple flows, and this gets crowded because you can clone and create list views, and you can filter for words in the label. That's what I use that for. Immediately when I go into my list views, I usually create a list view that has, for example, for this session, gems, the word gems in the label. And then I create usually another one that's for all gems, active flows. And the way you do that is, it's right here. If you go to your clone here, let me just do one for you so that you can see it. You go to your all flows, and then you clone one here, and then you have to give it a name. I'm just going to keep it copy of all flows gems 9, and then you can decide whether this is going to be available to your user only or every user, and then you save, and then you have all these filters. You can say, okay, I want to add a filter, and I want to only see the active flows. Active equals true. That's how this is done. Or you can say, like, I want to have flow lead label contains the word gems. And then when you say done and save, you are going to see that your list filter down selects the flows that have gems in them, right? So let me actually clean this name up a little bit. All flows gem 9. Let's call this all flows gem 9. And then let's make sure that we check for gems 9. All right. So now these are the flows I have created for the demo to work. Let me go to my gems active flows. I can see these flows are active here. I need to deactivate them because we are going to build all these together one more time. I can do that here. Go to view details and versions and deactivate right here. Or now we have actually a wonderful functionality called Flow Trigger Explorer. We can go to, because these are all on the opportunity, if I have them on the opportunity like this, I'm going to see all my opportunity triggers. And I can see here, these are multiple flows. So multiple flows triggering on the same record. And I can now go to flow, view flow versions and deactivate it right here from this interface. I like this quite a bit. This is brand new and I highly recommend you use it. It's just very nice and clean interface to see everything. Activate, deactivate, even build a new flow. Once you click on new flow here, it's going to create a new flow of type fast field update from this interface, and it's going to pre-select opportunity because I have this list view set on opportunity, right? So then I'm going to go back. So these are all inactive, and I'm going to build that flow with you. Let's go to our new flow interface here. Once we click on new flow, I have multiple options here. It's very important to know, many people think flows are scary, overwhelming, hard to learn. And part of the reason is they kind of in their heads compare flows to workflow rules and process builders. They're like, okay, well, we had workflow rules. They were easy. Yeah, the interface is a little bit easier, less overwhelming. It's like a form-based interface, which is nice. But the important thing to note here, all your workflow rules and process builders can be done with just one type of flow right here. This type, record triggered flow, can do all workflow rules and process builders can do and more. The rest of it is new, brand new, and additional functionality. That's why the whole concept becomes very difficult and overwhelming for you when you first look at it. So then, split it into smaller sizes and then learn it that way. So that's why we start with record triggered flow. But just to tell you what these types are, it's important that you know, whenever you have any kind of interface with the user, any message that you need to display to the user, any screen, when the user needs to enter information for you, look and review information on the screen, you need a screen flow. None of the other flows have screen interactions. If you go start a record triggered flow, you're not going to see a screen element even. You can't use a screen element. You'll see a screen element here. So record triggered flows, as we just discussed, they will launch when a record is created, updated, or deleted. Or we have the option, we can also trigger on either create or update, right? So this depends on all kinds of record changes. So it is going to automatically launch. And the scheduled triggered flows are the flows that run on a predetermined date and time. So if we want to run a job, if we want to do some updates, on the 10th of July, 2022 at 8 p.m. Eastern time, then this is what we need. And we can do that. We can run that job on that time and date, and we can rerun it on a recurring schedule, right? But this does not include your delayed actions. If you want to do a delayed action, meaning, okay, well, a day after I create an opportunity, I want to send out an email, this is where you do that. We have a functionality called scheduled path, and that's built into the record triggered flow. So whenever you have a time and date that you're setting the action for your schedule, then you need this. Whenever you have a delay in reference to date, time, field value, record being updated, whatever, then you need this. Platform event triggered flows are a more advanced concept, and they are not widely used. They have their place, but it's not important for our discussion today. And the auto-launch flows launch on demand whenever they are called from Apex. They can be called from Process Builder, REST API, and more. So these are the kind of flows that you would use when they are not automatically triggered by record update create, and they do not require any screen interaction. So they run behind the scenes. So for us, we are going to get started here on record triggered flows. I'm going to click on create. And then I'm going to be presented this configure start element screen. And that takes care of a couple of very important parameters for me. And I need to tell what object to start to trigger this on. That's going to be opportunity. And I want to run this whenever opportunity is created or updated. This is where this is selected. And then I can have I can have entry conditions. I can decide to run this flow only on a subset of opportunities, not the whole space, let's say. Like if I don't want to run it on every opportunity that's being created and updated, I really want to use the entry conditions. The entry conditions are much better than the decision elements inside your flow. If you can use the entry conditions, you should definitely use the entry conditions, because whenever a flow is triggered, it creates some kind of overhead in resources inside Salesforce, means it unnecessarily runs. You don't need to launch that flow and check a decision element inside your flow if you can actually narrow it down right here. So what I'm going to say here, I want to actually set entry conditions, and my entry condition is whether the opportunity lead source is partner referral. And you've seen that inside Salesforce. We were checking for this. We were checking whether the lead source is partner referral. And the system was setting the type to the new customer type. So we have decided for our use case, for our purposes, whenever a partner referral new opportunity comes in, we know that comes in for a new customer. That's how we work. And then for now, we are going to skip this, but this is very important. We need to decide whether this is going to be a fast field update or actions and related records. Now, on other platforms, this is also called before save, and this is called after save. Salesforce renamed this for teaching purposes, for simplification purposes. But if you get confused, you can always look into the description down below in italics. If you see this before here, this is a before save. And if you see this after here, that's an after save. So whenever we want to update field values on the record that triggers the flow, in this case, the opportunity record that actually was created or updated, that's going to trigger the flow will be updated, because what we're going to do is we're going to check the lead source, whether that equals partner referral, and then update the type of the opportunity. We have to be on the left side. Whenever you can be on the left side, you want to be on the left side, because left side is super fast and efficient. Fast field updates run very early in the order of execution before save, and they are super fast and efficient. They use less resources in the system. So now we're going to hit done, and we are going to need only one element. We want to update the triggering record. We want to use that. Alternatively, we could also use an assignment element, but I don't recommend that. Salesforce created the shortcut for us. We are going to always use update element to update the triggering record, whether we are before save or after save. So I'm going to call this one update opportunity. And you'll see that in before save, in fast field updates, all the other options are grayed out. I can't even select the other options. This only gives me the option to update the record that triggered the flow, no other record. So that's fine. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to select the field of type. And please note, this interface gives me all the valid pick list options already. So, and one of those is new customer. I don't have to type it in. I select it. I save it. And now I need to give it a name. I'm not very strict on naming conventions, but do not use acronyms. Acronyms are not necessary. Use full words. And then as much as it fits, make it descriptive. I usually type things like that, like this, update, new customer, let's say update type new customer opportunity, and I'm going to use for my list view GEMS 9, and I usually put that it's a record triggered flow, and I usually add also the word flow, because in some APIs and when you look at metadata, you may not know immediately that this is a flow. It could be listed in some other, among other elements. I usually add the word flow in there, although it's not required. Just come up with a naming convention that's meaningful for you. When you look at it later, it's going to make sense to you. If you're working in teams, come up with a naming convention that works for all of you. So I'm going to save this one and activate it. So this is going to give me the part of the functionality, the update, the record update. So let's go ahead and try this one. We deactivated the other stuff. We can test now whether just this part works on the opportunity or not. So for that, because this also runs on update, I'm just going to run it on update. So here, lead source is word of mouth, and I'm going to change on this opportunity the lead source. And this opportunity is called Edge SLA. Change it to purchase list. And I'm going to save this. And type existing customer upgrade. No, it didn't update, did it? Existing customer upgrade opportunity. Lead source purchases. Let's see at the question. If I use to run the flow before save, what if I use the assignment element instead of update element? You can actually use update element. Now, Barbara says you use partner referral in your flow. Yeah, let's see. Yes. Sometimes I confuse myself like this one. Thank you very much. Let's actually fix this one to reproduce what we have said we're going to do. This is wrong. So I'm going to fix this, save this as a new version and activate it. And go back to my opportunities. And let's do this on gene point SLA and change this one to, oops, purchase list and save it. Yes. Now you see that the new customer is updated. So the first part of the automation works now. Yes. Ishrat also says the same thing. Fernando said the same thing. Thank you very much for being very attentive. So now we are going to do we are going to move to the second part of the flow. And this is going to be to create a task. So this, we can keep this one running, right? And if we want to see what runs in terms of trigger on our object, opportunity object, we can either go to Flow Trigger Explorer from that interface I showed you, or inside my flow, you will see that if I want to remember what kind of triggers are running on my opportunity record, I'll just go here and I can see all of them. Now, this is going to show me all the previous flows that I have created, the GEMS ones, and then I also have the GEMS 9 one, and these are inactive, so that's fine. I don't want to use these, I want to recreate these. So the only one that's active is this one that I just created and activated and tested, right? So now we are going to move to, actually, let's do from this interface. No, let's do from this interface because I want to discuss the after save choice here. So let's create a record triggered flow from this interface. Click on create. Now we are again presented with the start element. We are going to choose the opportunity object from this interface. And in this case, I'm going to use only when a record is created. So when you are creating a task based on a trigger, when you are creating any kind of new record based on a trigger, you want to be very careful. If you run your trigger whenever a record is created or updated, then you could end up with a bunch of tasks whenever a user updates the opportunity. They could go back in there and then say edit and then say save. They wouldn't even have to change any field values. It would create tasks. There could be 20 tasks created based on edits, small edits. So you don't want that. What we are going to do is we want to create create a task whenever a record is created. And condition requirements, let's make the condition requirements the same here. We are going to check whether lead source equals purchase list. And remember, we are going to create a task. What is a task? It is actually a record that's going to be related to the record that's triggering the flow. In this case, it's the opportunity. So we are talking about working in actions and related records. It's in the name. So whenever you need to create a record that's going to be related to the triggering opportunity record, you need to be in this space. even if you by accident start a flow that is a fast field update, you are going to quickly realize there is no create element in your flow canvas that you can use. It's not going to be presented to you as a choice. That's because in this kind of flow, we don't have the option of creating any other records. So we're going to click on this one, and then we're going to create a task. So how do we create a task? There are two ways, actually. We can either use an action. We can click on action, and then there is a new task create action here, which we can use. It's like this. It will show you a form, and then you can type in here. Or task is a record, so you can create a record from the create element, create records element. You can just create the record using this. So I'm just going to do that. Create task. I'm going to create one task, and I'm going to use separate resources and literal values for the task. The object is going to be task. I need to tell Salesforce what object I'm creating. And then I'm going to say, okay, the subject, and for this, I can start typing here. Please follow up on new customer. And let's put GEMS 9 in here. We'll know that it's the new task. And the owner is going to be the owner of the opportunity record. Whenever we want to refer to the field values of the record that trigger the flow, we have actually a record variable that's automatically created by Salesforce. It's under $record. So I'm going to start typing record, and I'll see $record, and I'll see that it's an opportunity because I'm triggering an opportunity. As I hit enter, I'm going to dive in and see all the field values in here. I can pick the owner. Now this allows me to dive into the owner field values, let's say to grab an email or something like that. That's not what I want to pick. If I want to get the owner ID, I would want to scroll down, and I'm going to see another owner ID here that doesn't have a right-facing arrow. And this is what I want to pick, right? So the owner ID of the task is going to be the $record owner ID. The activity date is going to be the current date. And how can I grab a current date? There are some global variables that are presented to me that I can use without creating anything. Under $flow, there is a current date that I can use as activity date. This is going to be the date that the flow runs, means it's going to be the date that the opportunity is created. So what else needs to be set up usually for a new task? Status, priority, priority normal. If you want to relate your task, up till now, we have not related this new task record to our opportunity record at all. If you want to relate that, and we would want to relate that so that the new task shows up in our activities on the opportunity record, and when we go to the task, we can click on the opportunity link, then we would want to assign the opportunity ID to what we call what ID. Now, the data model for tasks and activities is quite confusing in Salesforce. This has nothing to do with flow. So there are two fields that you can use to link tasks to other records. There's a who ID and what ID. Who ID is for leads and contacts and users, for people. What ID is for records that are not meant for people. So I'm going to need to use what ID to link it to the opportunity ID, and my opportunity ID is my record ID, $record ID. So I'm going to go again under $record, grab the record ID. So we've done all this, and I'm going to save this one. create task opportunity. Line, record triggered flow. So let's debug this one. We didn't talk about this one. If we want to know whether this is going to run okay, we can actually use our debug. So once we use debug, because this triggers on the opportunity, we need to point it to an opportunity record. We can point it to the one of the GEMS opportunities, the one that we used just a few minutes ago for testing, and then run it. And we'll see that the path that the flow took is highlighted. It went all the way to the end without error. If it experienced any errors here, and if it was not able to create a task, we would get like a stop sign here, and then this wouldn't be highlighted. We can expand all here and see our create task worked here, and then the values are set. The flow current date July 9 is assigned to activity date, and the owner ID and all that good stuff. And it's rolled back because it's in debug, record trigger debug mode, in rollback mode. It did not create a task for us, but it told us that it will create a task. It works fine. So we can activate this one, and then we can test. So we will have to create a new opportunity because this runs on opportunity create. All opportunities, new opportunity, and then GEMS 9 task create opportunity, amount $5, close date is required, we got to set it today, stage is required, qualification, and lead source, it is checking for lead source, so we need to do the purchase list again and save it. So now we'll see under activity that the task has been created. The task has the subject that we just entered into our flow, and the due date is set to today. The owner is the owner of the opportunity, and the record, the task record, is related to the opportunity record. I can click through and then go to the opportunity record to see. So do we have any questions so far? Let's go to the question part. So yes. So what are the pros and cons for using action and create records? And somebody responded, Huma, as per my experience, task action support limited fields. When you don't find the field in action, then we are pushed to go for create records element. Well, yeah, the only advantage of the task action is that it gives you like a form, and it reminds you kind of the fields that need to be set. So in the create elements, you have to remember what are the required fields, and you need to set them. I don't think the task action itself says which one is required, but at least it reminds you, the field values that need to be set. I don't really use the actions too much because the actions can be limited in some ways, as it was also explained here. And that interface on the action is quite limited. I think Salesforce is working on expanding that, because that interface that you see is used for all custom actions, for all standard actions. Whenever you want to use any kind of action, if you create your own invocable actions, like using Apex, that's the interface you see, and it's quite limited. It's actually not very nice. We're going to see that in simple email action. It has some really weird quirks about it. And then there's a question about who ID, what ID, and that's explained now. Yeah, who ID, what ID. This is actually not related to, directly related to flow. It is very much related to the activity records and tasks. So go ahead and research that part. It's something you should know if you are going to be creating tasks. It's a little bit, the naming is very, very weird. It's something that you need to keep in mind. But it's best to learn it from Salesforce help files. If you Google it, you'll see, for example, if you look at the data model, if you look at the standard fields on a task activity, then you'll see all those listed. One quick tip, sometimes we all forget, what are the required fields for a certain object record, right? If you need to create an object record, if you do not set the required fields in your flow interface, you are going to see an error. And if you don't want to face that, something that you can do, it's quite actually simple. You can go to your tasks, like we were talking about creating a task. So go to your task view. And then here, say new task. On this interface, obviously, as you know, as a user, all the fields that are marked with a red star are the required fields. So you have to set status, subject, priority. This is something that, we often forget because, through the interface, it defaults, right? You have to set the priority as well. If you do not set these fields, most probably you are going to experience a fault. So this is something you want to remember. The flow interface is not going to tell you that before debugging it. If you debug it, the debug interface will tell you it can't create a record. All right, now let's go to the email part. That's also an important requirement, and we face that quite a bit in our own orgs. Our users want to send a bunch of emails, and this is how it's done. Let's go back to our flow interface. Now, let me ask you a question. Sending an email, is that going to be, and we are going to use send simple email action. Is that going to be a before save or after save? Is that going to be a fast field update or actions and related records? Put your answer in chat, please. All right, yes. After, everybody knows. Oh my God. You don't need my session. All right, drop off. You're graduated. All right. Okay, very well answered. Now, what I'm going to use this time is I had an after save here for create task, right? Where's that one? Oh, I'm on the wrong view because that one was pinned. I want to pin this view. And this one was my create task here. And let me just go to my Flow Trigger Explorer and look at it from here. So this is the after save space here. And I can see in this view, the previous flow that's inactive now is also in after save. So if I want to create a brand new flow from this interface, I can actually click this one. And because I'm clicking this button, not this button here, it's going to start creating a record triggered flow on the opportunity object in after save. So let's do that. Yeah, so it started a flow, showed me the configure start element, and then object has been pre-selected to opportunity, and the type of flow has been also pre-selected as actions and related records. I think it defaults to that anyway, but yeah, so it's been selected, it's accurate. So now we want to send out an email whenever an opportunity is a large opportunity. So let's do that on create again this time. And this time, what we want to check for is whether the opportunity is a large opportunity. And for that, I need to check the amount field. So if the amount field is greater than 100,000, let's say $100,000 and more is a large opportunity. I said, okay, $100,000 and more, then I should use greater than or equal. Then this is a large opportunity. So this is going to trigger in that case and send out an email. And to send out an email, I'm going to be using the simple email action. Because I'm using an action, that was the keyword in my question before. I said, okay, I'm going to be using the simple email action. Then I have to be in actions and related records, because if I started before save fast field update flow, there is no action element I can select from here. So, and then I'm gonna start typing simple email, send email or email simple. This is the action that we're gonna use. And let's just simply call this one send email for now. And here I can use as body a text template, or I can just start typing things in here. So I'm going to make it simple for now. I'm going to say, please follow up on the large opportunity. Subject, I'm going to say follow-up needed. Let's put the GEMS 9 in there so we know we created this one today. So you can use a collection or comma separated values for emails. If you click on this one and then include this one right here, instead of using a variable or like a field value, you can actually start typing here. I'm going to use my Salesforce break Gmail account and just hard code that in here. So it says comma separated, but if you're using just a single email value, you can just type in one. Now, this is what I was referring to, like a quirky, really weird, odd interface. Now, if you want your email to be sent out as rich text email, because I typed all the contents here, it's not going to look any different whether it's rich text or not. But if I'm using a text template with rich text formatting, then I need that. If you want to turn this option on, you do this, and then it presents you this text box, and you need to set this to true. That means, yes, I want rich text. It's very odd, isn't it? The first time I actually faced this one, I thought I was turning rich text format on just by sliding this on, but no. And this part we don't need. We're just going to say done. And then say send large opportunity email. And this is a record triggered flow. Let's put the record triggered in there. Ooh, what did I do? I think I broke the system. Huh. Did I open one too many tabs? And we lost the flow, I think. Isn't that amazing? But I still have you, right? Can we use email templates? Yes, we can use email templates. I'll tell you about that. Okay, you're here. That's what matters. All right. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to reuse the email, the send email flow that I have already created. Let's go back to the GEMS one. Where are we? All right, right here. So this is our flow that I have created before. Please follow up on large opportunity. Let's change this one to right here. and update it to GEMS 9. And it looks the same. What are the start conditions? On the start conditions here, I'm checking again, greater than, we said greater than equal. Let's change that, that's fine. And let me just save this as a new version and then activate it. And I'm going to go back here. And create a new opportunity. And set a close date. Lead source, not that it matters for this email example. Lead source is purchase list, prospecting, and the amount is going to be 200,000. Obviously more than 100,000. Save. So it is set to new customer. It did create the task. Now we're going to check whether the email worked. Maybe I need to close a couple of things here, right? Maybe I have too many things open. So let's check the email here. Yes, we have an email now that says large opportunity entered GEMS 9 and please follow up on large opportunity. How do you use email templates? That's a very good question. All right, we have a couple of questions. Let me just go through them. How do we use email templates is the first one. To use email templates, the classic email templates, you would use your email alerts. So you can create email alerts as you always did with your workflow rules. So if you create a classic email template, an email alert, that email alert is callable from your flow. You can call it. And the way you would call it is right here. You would add your action. Let me just try and pretend to add another action here. And then here in your category type, you choose type. And then you'll see under email alerts, your email alerts will be all listed here. You can search by name the email alert that you want to use as well. Like you don't have to go down these filters. But if you go down these filters, the only things you're going to be selecting from will be your email alerts. Because I don't have any email alerts here in this org, I don't see them here. If you want to use your Lightning email templates as well, and if you want to pretty much use all the options that are available to you under the sun, you want to head to unofficialsf.com and use an action that comes with an unmanaged package that is not through the app exchange called Send Better Email. Send Better Email is very good. I highly recommend that you use it, but obviously if you are working on your work org, your work may not allow you to use that because it doesn't come through the app exchange. All right, so another question, is it better to have two after save flows or should we add this email piece to after save flow you already created? I'm thinking maybe best to have two of them so we can only have one email flow instead of adding the email piece to a bunch of opportunity flows. But maybe what there should be only one opportunity flow. Okay. So I'm going to briefly answer this one because it's a very popular question. It's a deep discussion. It depends. It depends on your use case. Now, we have created 3 flows to do this, right? Do we need 3 flows? We actually don't need 3 flows. We can make all these updates in one after save flow. We cannot make all these updates and actions in before save flows because obviously the create task and send email requires after save. So I have to be in after save, but I can do the same record field update inside my after save flow. So for all this, you can create one flow. If that's simple for you, it's easily maintainable for you, you should do that. There's no problem with creating one flow. And it's not going to make a huge difference unless you have thousands and thousands of users all over the world updating 200 records every day, creating opportunities every day. Like, you know, the numbers are staggering. It's not going to make a huge difference whether you do the same field update like on before save, on the before save side or not. But if especially your start entry conditions are different, like in this case, for example, we said we're going to do a field update whenever the lead source is purchase list, but we want to send out an email whenever the opportunity is large. If these are not the same, it actually makes sense to create multiple flows, because like I told you, if you can narrow down your entry conditions, you should narrow down your entry conditions, then you won't be using system resources whenever an opportunity that's not related to your action is created. But I mean, for these kinds of simple actions, and you know, if you don't have thousands and thousands of users, it doesn't really matter that much. It's not something you should lose sleep over. All right, so now we have done all this. Let me just see again if we have any other questions in the chat. Yes, we are good. So I'm going to now go into the other types of flows. Now, the one thing that I like to show for everybody is, like, let's say we want to actually send out an email of a large email alert based on demand. We want to be able to call it from Apex. We want to be able to call it from process. And by the way, auto-launch flows, if we use auto-launch flows, they can also be used as subflows as well. So, you know, if I wanted to use this as a subflow to another flow, then I could convert this whole action to an auto-launch flow. So what is an auto-launch flow? As we said, it's actually very similar to a record-triggered flow, but it doesn't automatically trigger based on a record being created and updated. In fact, in flow interface, when you look at your types of flows in your list view, you are going to see that your record-triggered flows are classified as auto-launch flows. They are auto-launch flows with trigger. So if I take out the trigger, then my auto-launch flow is just going to become a simple auto-launch flow. So I can create that from my new flow interface here. And I can just click on this. If I click on this, I'm going to see, it's just going to dive into a canvas. It's not going to show me the start element configurator. Or I can save my existing flow as an auto-launch flow. So that's an interesting concept. Like here, this is the send large opportunity email, GEMS record triggered flow. This is the one that we were working on. Version 2, the version that we have just updated, saved, activated. So I can take this one and I can say, you know what, I want to save this flow as a different type of flow, which I usually do by copying the name here, click on a new flow, paste the name here. Because I have auto-launched or record triggered in the name, I'll just change this to auto-launched. And let's change this to GEMS 9. And I need to look at my advanced options. In my advanced options, I'm going to see the type of flow is a record triggered flow, and I'm going to change this one to an auto-launch flow. Right here. Save it. So what did this do? It actually took only the trigger out of it. That's what it did. So the other thing that we need to check is, did it break anything? We may need to fix a couple of things here. So as we go through the options and the field values that we are setting, did we refer to any dollar record values? If we refer to dollar record values, we used, let's say, the opportunity name off of the record that's triggering the flow, then those would break and we would have to replace them with something else. But we don't really have that. It's kind of delinked from the record that triggered the flow. So we can use this. So whenever this flow is created, whenever this flow is triggered, it's going to send out an email. But I mean, by itself, it's kind of a silly flow. It's just going to send out an email. It's going to say like there's a large opportunity. It doesn't tell the user any information about the opportunity. It doesn't link to the opportunity. So let's work on that a little bit. So how can we make this better? So first of all, auto-launch flows are much better if they are aware of a record that they need to work on. So, and to do that, whenever we want to launch a flow from another interface, we usually feed it like a variable, like a record value. So we like to do, for example, create a variable here called record ID. Whenever we want to feed an auto launch flow or a subflow a record ID, we want to be creating a variable called record ID. That's usually the naming convention we use, because if you want to deploy this flow like using a button from the flow interface as a screen flow, you cannot really deploy it as an auto launch flow, but we could convert it to a screen flow. This is the naming convention that that type of deployment or distribution expects. That's why we usually call the record, the main record that we're working on, record ID with only I capitalized. And it needs to be of type text. And I'm going to mark it available for inputs so that whenever I run this flow, like in debug mode, or when I run it from another flow, it is going to ask me for that input. Salesforce is going to say like, well, which record do you want me to run this flow on? So I created that. That's sitting right there. Now I can use that. Let's say we want to get that opportunity record from the database because we want to be able to use the field values. We didn't have to do that in the record triggered flow because the triggering record field values were available to me, but we have to do that here. So I'm going to get the opportunity. I'm going to tell my get element, I want to be getting a record of type opportunity, of object opportunity type, and the ID needs to equal to the record ID that the user or the launching party is going to feed this flow. And I don't really have to change any of this. I want to get the first record and automatically store all the field values of that record. So now that I have that, I can use that information here. So let's do a couple of things here. Let's do a body and a subject that we can use that is going to come from the opportunity record itself. For that, whenever I want to combine fixed strings with variable values, I would have to use a formula or a text template. So I'm going to use a formula here. I'm going to call it email subject formula. This formula is going to create a text value, and it's going to say, please follow up on the opportunity. Titled. And because this is text, the static part needs to be in quotes. And then I can combine this with and sign. And now from my picker, I can pick field values to add to this. So I'm going to, if I want to refer to the get element record field values, I need to start typing my get opportunity. And then if I start typing get opportunity, I'm going to see the record variable that's automatically created from the get element, enter to dive into the field values, and then go grab the name. Let me see, scroll down here. Where's my name? So now the subject of this email is going to be, please follow up on the opportunity titled, let me put just a colon here, and then it's going to feed the opportunity name in here. Because the opportunity name field is a text field, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm combining two texts and coming up with a new text. So now I can change this, and I can say the subject needs to come from the email subject formula value. All right, so we are using an HTML email, but we're not really doing anything with that. Let's just also come up with a better design here. And for that, I'm going to create a text template. And this text template is going to be named email body text template. And I can structure this as rich text. I can do anything with that. Let me just copy, please follow up on large opportunity titled again here, and then drop in again the get opportunity name. Reach out to the client within 1 week to analyze requirements. And I just want to make this one bold and this one underlined, just to emphasize that I can use these options here and say management, I don't know. So this is the body of the email. So that's created. I can point now this part to the body of the email text template I have created. So I'm going to save and debug this one. So let's use this on GEMS 9 large opportunity. And by debug interface is going to ask me, what is the record ID you want me to run this flow on? And I can paste the record ID here from my browser bar in my Salesforce instance from the UI. And it's going to show me that it's went through the whole flow without problems. And when I expand this here, it's going to show me that the email body template has been used and the opportunity name has been fed into the email body. And the subject also has the opportunity name, and the email has been sent. So when I'm debugging this as an Autolauched flow, I have the option of running this in rollback mode or not. I did not choose that. Because I did not choose that, I don't see that here, which means the email has been sent. So I can check whether the email has been received in my email account. And I can see that the email has been received with the new format. I see that the GEMS 9 large opportunity name is in the subject, in the body, and I can see the bold and the underline as I just formatted in my text template. Any questions? Can you talk about how to send email to more than one recipient contacts, for example, or account owners in most efficient manner? Okay. And so the get records element is for getting records from other records than from the triggering object. Yeah, I mean, in before save trigger flows, record triggered flows, or after save record triggered flows, you have the option of getting records. So you can get other records as well. The record that triggered the flow and that record's field values are automatically available to you. You can use those. But because we are in Autolauched, we don't really have any record that the flow triggered on. So we have to get the field values regardless, because no field values are presented to us. If you want to use it in our flow, this flow is going to be aware of like a record context. Then we have to feed the flow there. How can you send all records in an email? I'm not sure what that question means. Send all records. Can you expand on that? So now, how can you send an email to more than one recipient context, for example, account owners, in the most efficient manner? Okay, so when you are sending emails to multiple people, right? Let me just go back to my flow interface here. This is where you do that. You get two options here. You either have to use a collection. This is a more advanced concept. We're not going to go into that much today. So it is a variable that holds multiple values. So you could create a text variable in a collection, meaning it can hold multiple text values. And then you could have multiple email addresses in that collection, and you could feed that right here. So that variable, that collection variable, if it is fed here, it's going to, if it has 10 email addresses, it's going to send the email to 10 people. Or you can create a comma separated string. So you can string multiple strings together that contain emails. So it's going to say sftp dcbreak@gmail.com, and then comma a@b.com, comma b@c.co, things like that. So then if you feed that here, and I can actually type it here as well. You know, if I type multiple email addresses, then it's going to send it to multiple email addresses. Then it'll do that. Now, the challenge there is to be able to do any of this, you kind of have to loop. You know, if you're dealing with multiple contact records, let's say, you need to grab their email and you need to put them in a collection or in a string like this, comma separate, and you will have to loop. So that's a more advanced topic. So we're not going to cover that today. There is a limit of 5 emails. I'm not sure whether it's 5, but yeah, there is a limit. If you use the send better email component, send better email component has multiple flexible options. The one from unofficial SF about being able to send bulk emails. It will also create a list for you to use later and then send out the emails so that you won't have to hit any governance limits, any kind of capacity limits and things like that. All right, so if you go to the YouTube channel, if you go to the other resources, and if you look on Google, you are going to see multiple solutions that are going to tell you how to do some of these things. Now, I almost forgot. I also created actually a coupon for you if you are interested in purchasing the course, if you haven't already. And let me just cue you that one right here. So this is a special coupon link that I have created. The code is GEMS 2022, and the course is at $9.99. If you're somewhere else in the world, probably cheaper. It's the cheapest price that you can ever find my course at, and it's going to be valid for the next 5 days. You can share it with your friends, and it can be used multiple times for the next 5 days. Now, here, let me go back now to other types of flows, because it's important for us to also cover the screen flows, right? So let me see what else I have created here. Update type. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's say we want to do a screen flow that allows us to review some of the critical opportunity field values on the screen, and then off of those opportunity, create an email out to the user, the flow that we have just created. Let me just remember to save this one, because I don't think I activated it. Save activated. Well, I don't really need to activate this one. If it's saved, it's fine. So what I'm going to do is I can't really deploy an Autolauched flow on the screen. Like I cannot really insert it in my Lightning email. Not Lightning record templates, Lightning record page layouts, or I cannot really launch it using a button on the Salesforce interface. For that, I need a screen flow. So what I'm going to do, as I showed you before, I'm going to save this flow that we have just worked on, the Autolauched flow, now this time as a screen flow, so that I can actually distribute and deploy it from the screen. So let me just take this one and again do a save as, send large opportunity, and let's take the large out of it for now. Send opportunity email gems9 screen flow. Let's call it this way. And I'm going to go into my advanced section, and I'm going to say, I want to save this now as a screen flow, right? So now we have a screen flow. By the way, this screen flow doesn't have any screen elements. It doesn't actually have to have them. Screen flows have screen elements available to them, but they don't really have to use them. But unless you save a flow as a screen flow, you're not going to be able to deploy it from screen interfaces. So that's why this is important. But because it's a screen flow, it would be very silly for us to just send out an email using it. Let's make this use case a little bit more elaborate, and let's add a screen to this that will allow the user to check some of the critical field values on the screen, make changes if they need to, kind of review. And then as a result of that, if this is a big opportunity, send out an email. Let's structure it that way. So how can we do that? So we have, again, a flow here that we worked on that works on an opportunity and sends out an email. So we're getting the opportunity here. So the opportunity field values are available to us. Let's insert our screen element right here after the get. And this screen is going to use those field values to present those field values back to the user for review. So the first thing I usually do when I go to a new screen, I obviously need to name it. Let's call opportunity review screen. And then I immediately disable the header, because the header comes from the flow name. That's not very useful in most cases. And I insert the display text element here for a header. Let's call this text header. And I'm going to say this is a rich text component. Please review the opportunity field values. So I can make this one bold.
And now here, I want to use the fields beta functionality. We have a functionality called fields beta. Now they renamed it to dynamic forms for flow, which is quite useful. It's still beta, so theoretically Salesforce could pull it out. That's not going to happen. I don't think so. But it doesn't support all the fields yet, all the field types yet. That's why it's in beta. But it is quite useful, especially when you're throwing together a demo like this and then doing a training session. It does take care of a lot of the parameters that you have to set up all these different screen components. Now, I'm going to use the fields beta functionality for the fields that are supported. It needs to point to a record variable. Remember, we have actually a record variable automatically created that is coming from the get element, and that's right here. So I'm going to point to that record variable, and that is going to make all the supported fields available to me for me to insert and use on the screen. So I'm going to drag this name, opportunity name here. Now I have the opportunity name presented on the screen, and you'll see that it comes with all the validation rules of the object itself, because the object, the name on the object can only hold up to 120 characters. That's built in. It is required. All that stuff that you used to have to manually select now comes automatically. And I want to use the section element to create two column view. And for that, I have to click back to components, drag the section in. And here I can add up to 4 columns. I want 2 columns. Go back to my fields beta and add the stage here and the close date. And there is one more critical value that we usually want to review or set, which is the amount, right? And the amount here is unfortunately not supported. This fields beta functionality does not support currency fields yet. For that, I have to go back here and then drag the currency text input, currency input component here, and then call this one amount. And here I have to select that it's required. And I have to also make sure that as I assign the default value to this so that the value from the get element is displayed here, which means I need to point to the record variable get opportunity amount field value. So that's going to be the default value. When this screen is pulled up, it's going to get the number from that record field value. So I'm done here. Now, all my fields beta input components are going to automatically remember all the changes. They are going to assign all the user input changes to the get record fields. The one that's not supported, that's not going to do that automatically, is the amount. As you can remember, we didn't use the fields beta. So I have to have an assignment element to make sure that field value is assigned to the record variable. So I'm going to say get opportunity amount value needs to come from the screen component amount equals. So now I'm sure that all the screen field values are carried over, they are assigned. And I obviously want to do an update. I don't want to lose all the changes if the user made any changes. I'm going to say update opportunity. And I want to update the opportunity record. Well, I can use the get opportunity record variable. I don't have to do anything else. So take all the updated values from the get opportunity record variable and update the opportunity record with that. That's what I'm saying, Salesforce, right? And here we have a little discrepancy. We have to work on this one now. Now, we don't really know whether this opportunity is a large opportunity or not. So because this is not a record triggered flow anymore, there are no checks. So we want to insert a decision here to check, is opportunity a large opportunity? Yes, large opportunity will be the first outcome. And the condition of that is going to be amount on that opportunity is, last time we did greater than equal, let's keep it that way, $100,000. And this is the default outcome. I'm just going to rename this one, no, not large, so that it's clear. Yes, large, no, not large. All right, so now I want to connect yes, large here. Connect to, well, it's already connected. I don't have to do that. I just need to make sure I need to bypass this part from not large. So yeah, so the no not large has to bypass send email. Connect element to directly to stop. Directly to the end element. Okay, now it looks better. So we go down here, get opportunity, do our screen updates and reviews, assign the amount, update the opportunity, and if the updated opportunity amount is large, send out an email. So that concludes this screen flow. So how does that look? So I'm going to debug this. Again, it's going to ask me, what is the record ID you want me to run on? Take the record ID from my interface. Let's close this one. We don't need this one anymore. And run this one. Now I have this screen where I can see the name of the opportunity, the stage of the opportunity. It's a pick list. See, I can see all the valid options here. I can change the close date and the amount. All the required fields are here. So I can make changes. Let's say I made a change here to 50,000, right? Next. So what did the flow do? Let's look on our debug on the right side. We can tell on the debug log what the flow did. So the assignment shows that the $50,000 has been assigned to the get opportunity record variable, and update record ran, and when it ran, it will list all the field values that were updated, prospecting, amount 50,000. So the amount has been updated to 50,000 from 200,000. And I'll see in my decision step that the amount is at 50,000 and it ran through the decision, and the default outcome has been executed, meaning it wasn't a large opportunity, it was a small opportunity, right? And the transaction has been committed. This has not run in debug mode, so the changes must have been made. It didn't run in rollback mode. So if we go here, we see that the amount of the opportunity has been changed to 50,000. So has the email been sent? Let's see, it according to the debug log, it was not sent, and I don't see any new emails here. Let's rerun this debug one more time and then update the opportunity to a large opportunity, right? Okay, let's go here. Where are we? Here. Debug. Use the same. So let's make this one 500,000, no, 400,000. All right. And next. And I can see here 400,000 has been updated on the opportunity. It went into the decision element, and it says my amount value is 400,000, and it's greater than 100,000, and the outcome that's executed is called yes large opportunity, which took me to the send email element, and the email has been sent to sftpdcbreak@gmail.com, and that transaction has been committed. So let's check. Yes, now we see in our Salesforce instance, when we pull the record, that the amount is 400,000. Let's check the email. Refresh our screen. Boom. And then we have the email. The email says GEMS 9 large opportunity. We didn't really change the name of the opportunity. We could have. From that, let's do that actually. Let's do that so that you can see very quickly. Run the debug again, 400,000. Let's make this one 550,000, and then change this GEMS 9 large opportunities screen flow. Result. Next. The email has been sent, and now let's go back, check our emails, refresh, and then you'll see that the name of the opportunity has been changed. As a result, we got the new name in our emails, right? All right, so any questions about this part? All right, let me just answer the question that I received before. So the question was, when you're sending out an email, can you use different emails from different types of records? You know, like let's say you want to get the email addresses, 2 email addresses from contact, 1 email address from an account, the other one from a lead user. Salesforce doesn't care. Like, and the email action doesn't care where the emails are coming from. You can. So what you can do is, let me just briefly show this one. We don't really have time to do this, but I can just show you to give you an idea. So here you will create a variable, email CSV variable. Let me just call this one CSV text variable. All right. So it's going to be of type text. And this is going to capture all the email addresses. Let's say there is an email. Is there an email on the opportunity? I don't think so. Is there an email field? There would be an email field on the contact, right? Let's say we want to assign, how should we do this one? Let's get a contact from the org. Jack Rogers, okay? Just for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to get this contact and then use the email address from there. Let's say I want to get this one right at the beginning of this. When I'm getting the opportunity, I also want to get the Jack Rogers email address. Get records, get contact. This is going to be of type contact. And the ID of this contact, all conditions are met. ID of this contact equals, and I'm going to type the contact ID that's available in the org. I know it's available. So now I'm going to use this contact email address. What I need to do here is I need to assign this email, and I created the email CSV text variable, I'm going to use the add operator, not the equal operator, and I'm going to say add the email address of the contact to this email string, and then add again to the email CSV variable a comma. So you see what happened here is I started accumulating in this text string an email address and a comma. So if I loop through this, and then if I start feeding different type of email addresses, I can accumulate in this variable, email CSV text variable, something that would read like email address 1, comma, email address 2, comma, email address 3, comma. And then I can take, when I'm done, I can take this whole email CSV text variable and feed it right here. This is how it's done. All right, so do we have any other questions? Do we have two screens? I'm not sure what that question is. I do not know if you wanted to show us the emails. So when I go from one screen to another, you don't see the email screen? Oh, okay. You don't see the email screen. Yes, the recording is going to be published on salesforcebreak.com. I mean, it's going to be published on the Salesforce Break YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel you can find by going to salesforcebreak.com website. It's linked over there. Okay, let me just do another share screen. I think I shared only one browser before. And let me show you the emails. I guess you missed out on that, you didn't see. Okay, so yeah, this is the last email we received, folks. So the last email we received, if you remember, we updated the opportunity name from GEMS9 large opportunity to GEMS9 large opportunity dash screenflow result. And you see that the title, the subject of the email got that update. And then also the body of the email got that update. That was the last email. And then this was the previous email that we received. We did not change the subject, but we still send out the email. It's right here, actually, the second one. I mean, all these emails actually look the same because they do not include the amount. We've been playing with the amount, not changing the name. And so those are the previous emails. Sorry about the sharing accident there. Okay, so, well, I see more questions about loops. It is impossible for me to teach you loops with an introductory session that lasts 2 hours. So for that, I have free material on my Salesforce Break YouTube channel. So you can go there and you can learn how to loop because it's available there. Or if you want something more structured or up to date, you want to pick up my Udemy course. Like I said, the code I shared is for $9.99. And if you're somewhere else in the world, Turkey, India, whatever, it's going to be much cheaper. And it is the lowest price that it comes at. You know, it cannot go any lower than that. For the next 5 days, that code is going to be available and you can use that to be able to use loops. I do understand that many people, they want to start using loops and some advanced topics immediately, but it's actually not very possible before you understand the concept of variables, collection variables, record variables very well, and some other concepts around flows. So for the remaining time, we have 20 minutes. Let's actually deploy the screen flow and distribute it on our Salesforce org and show you how that's done. Okay, so we have created this flow here, right? And let me just save this one. But I don't think I messed it up much, but we have the get contact here. We want to go back to the previous version. As you are working on your flows, do not hesitate creating multiple versions. It does crash once in a while, very rarely, like it happened to me today. So that's why you want to be saving early. Hopefully, before you build your flow, after you insert like one element or something, just go ahead and save, give it a name. And then you'll save multiple times. The maximum number of versions you can have is 50. Once you hit 50, Salesforce is going to warn you, and then you're going to start deleting some of the older versions. It's not a huge problem. And you rarely get there. So which one have we been working on? Let me just go here to my view of GEMS 9. And this is the screen flow that we're working on. Whenever I work on multiple versions and then I do enhanced work in flows, I always go to my flows using this little tab sign right here instead of right here, because this is going to take you to the active version. And it just so happens sometimes you have 10 versions, but active version is 5. And then you're working on the 10th version, which should not really happen, but it can happen. So if you go here, you are going to have a more detailed view of what the versions are when they are recorded and that kind of stuff. And then you can go back in versions. And I want to actually work on this one here and activate this one. Let me just open this and look at it. This is the one that doesn't have the get contact. Activate this one. Now, this screen flow is available for me to call from the interface, right? So what can I do with that? One thing that I can do is I can actually go to the opportunity and go to my page layout. And let's create a new tab here. Can we do that? New tab. Let's add a tab. And this is going to be a custom tab. Let's say, let's call this one brief review. Done. And let's move this up and make the default tab brief review. So save this one. And we have it right here now. And for some reason, this just sometimes changes back when I start playing. Yeah, we have it now saved. Now, what I want to do is I want to insert the flow here. And I want to see that on the screen. For that, I can actually drag the flow element from the left panel and point that to a flow, screen flow that's active in my org. And that's the one right here that we've been working on. Send opportunity email, GEMS 9. I want to point to that. Because it has a variable marked for input, it's going to ask me what I want to set that variable value as. And we used to have to remember also on this interface all kinds of syntax rules and whatever. We don't have to do that anymore. We can just say to Salesforce using this checkbox here, go ahead and pass the record ID of this record into this variable. And then it takes care of the syntax for me. So I'm going to save this one and go back to my org. And when I go back to my org, I'm going to see now my first tab became the brief review that we have just built. So now the user can use this to update the record. They can say brief review, change the name, and change the amount to 350. Close date should be the 9th of August, and the state should be qualification. And the user now can hit next. And it is going to, now the only problem with this screen flow is it is going to cycle through every time. So as you can see, it took the updates. The updates have been done, but when you deploy and you use your flow, like on the Lightning interface like this, unless you put like a success screen at the end of it or something to display that the changes have been executed and done, it's going to cycle back to the same screen and run the flow again. That's what happened. Brief review has been updated. The stage has been updated, the date and the amount, but it just went back to the same screen again. It doesn't really look like it did anything. So we need to add a success screen there. So if I go to the details of the record, I can see that the changes have been committed. And I should have received an email also for this one in my trust email account, right? Let's go to my email account here. And hopefully this time you can see the email account. And yes, the email has been received. That's called brief review result. So let's fix that little problem that I mentioned to you, which is we don't really have a success screen. So we should have a success screen. So over here, I'm going to add a screen. And just simply display text that says the message is going to say your changes have been recorded successfully. The changes, oops, I cannot type. The changes you submitted have been recorded successfully. Let's make it bold. And let's add a couple of empty lines here before, a couple of empty lines after, kind of make it look a little bit nicer. So this is going to show here that the changes have been committed successfully. Now, this is after the update element. So if the update element fails, the user will never see the screen. So we did not really add any conditions here or like error messages. We didn't feed it from default lines, but still, this is going to work. So now save this one as a new version and activate it. And if I go to my brief review here, refresh this and make needs analysis change here. And next, yeah, now I see a screen that says the changes you submitted have been recorded successfully. And, I can rename or change the buttons, whatever, but, if they hit next, they are going to cycle back to the previous one. There is one problem with this approach, though. Unless the user, and this is misleading, unless the user actually hits the next after this, nobody's going to get an email for the large opportunity. So this is not good. So we need to change the place of that. So this whole decision, this evaluation needs to come before the success screen, or the way the user is going to use that screen is not going to result in any emails. So what I can do here is I can take this and how do I do this? Let's save this as a new version. take this. I don't see the connect to element. Sometimes auto layout doesn't work for me, or I get confused. I'm going to switch to freeform. It's much easier to do this over here. So I'm going to take this screen element out of here. I'm going to go into my decision directly, and I'm going to have two of the decision branches, both of them, whether they send out an email or not, go to the success screen. Let me go back to auto layout and see if it goes back. Yeah, if it went back actually successfully. Now we have that look, and now the email is going to be sent before the success screen is displayed. All right, we have only now, I think, 9 minutes, so we should go over the questions. So whenever you update the flow, it will take automatically the latest version. Are you talking about the flow that runs on the Lightning app page, right? Yes. So if there is no active version for your flow, it's going to give you an error message. It's gonna break. There has to be at least one active version of your screen flow that you're pointing to in your Lightning app page. But whenever you change the active version, it's going to use the active version. So that's how that works. Another way to use this flow is also by launching from a button. You could do that as well. In that case, what you would do is you would create a quick action. You would go to your opportunity. Let me actually see if I can do that very quick. So edit object, and then go to your button links and actions, create a new action. Your new action is going to say flow, and then it's going to point to this flow right here. And I'm going to label this one as brief review flow. That's the name of the quick action. Save. And after that, you would go to your object manager opportunity again, and this time the page layout. And this is your opportunity page layout. Hopefully that's the active. You will go to your you will go to your mobile Lightning actions, and over there you'll see the brief view, and that you need to drag and use here down in the bottom section. But before you do that, you need to click on this gear thing, the wrench thing, and then drag down the brief review right here. When you save this, it should show up, and there could be some caching involved here, right here. And when you click on this one, the way this works is a little bit different, like the UI feel of it is going to be very different, but it's going to do the same exact thing. So now we have this, we go through it, we have the success message, the email has already been sent, and that's done. Voila, folks. So yeah, this is the end of the session. But once you activate a flow version, you can no longer save to that version unless you save it as another version. Yeah, once you activate it, you have to save it as another version. If you don't activate it yet, then yes, you can still work on it. You can save, and then you can activate that one. You can deactivate the version, but I don't think you can edit it and save as the same version. So you will have to advance your version, which is good. I mean, advance your version. Be generous about your versions so that you don't lose any of the changes. Well, thanks for attending and participating. Can you debug if it's deactive? Yeah, you can always debug. Debug doesn't care whether it's active or not. You should always debug early, debug many times, debug whether it's active or not active. We have not been able to go into that detail a lot, but you'll see a lot of other sessions where I have done that. Great. And please do share this session on social channels. You can find me on salesforcebreak.com. You can find my LinkedIn profile, Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter, LinkedIn. Please do not ask me flow questions, just DMing directly, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that all my answers benefit multiple people. So I run actually a Salesforce Break Slack workspace. You'll also find that on salesforcebreak.com. Join there and ask your questions there. If I'm not available, somebody else is going to be answering your questions. And please try to answer other people's questions, because that's the best kind of learning. You know, you'll get exposed to multiple use cases. Yes, the recording will be available on the Salesforce Break YouTube channel, and you can find the YouTube channel link on the salesforcebreak.com website. While using a Flow component in Experience Cloud, can be able to match the font size with Experience Cloud branding. When you expose the Flow on the website, your formatting options are limited. So yeah, you will have a difficulty there. The invitation to the Slack channel, it was asked if the invitation of the Slack channel is on salesforcebreak.com. Go to salesforcebreak.com. You're going to see there's a menu item. There's a tab for the blog, for the newsletter, for the Slack workspace, for the Udemy course, for the YouTube channel, and all those are links. And the link for the Slack workspace is an invitation in itself. Okay. So thank you very much and have a great day. Bye-bye.